Rub-a-dub-dub-dub, nerds! Only the intellectuals will understand this intro. But they're probably all at McDonald's right now being very upset. So, anyways, a lot of you have been asking me, Sages, what should I spend my sacred coins on? So, I guess we'll talk about that when it comes to sacred seals. I already spent some of mine. So, yeah, that's a thing, right? That's a thing, totally. Okay. We're going to talk about creation in a bit, but right now we're going to take a look at enhancement, which is one that many people have been looking at, and obviously you can already tell what I enhanced my first seal to be. But what should you prioritize as a seal, to upgrade or to create? Well, for me, there is one seal that kind of rose above all, and that was, of course, Distant Defense. That was one that I found that would probably be one of the tried and true seals that could be useful in many situations, in a lot of them, honestly. Partly because, well, you know, I'm sure people will talk to me and go, but you could have gotten Deflect, and, well, Deflect is cool, but I still feel Distant Defense is at least better all around. Mostly because, for those, you know, who don't know, this is from two units right now. That's Celica and, of course, Performing Arts Olivia. And this essentially just allows you to tank ranged units a bit better. You know, daggers, magic, staff, whatever, and I guess bows as well. And it just gives you the, you know, required defensive stat for that at whatever value it is. So in this case, for 3, it would be, you know, +6 to defense or res, depending on who attacks you, which is great. That is a great seal to have because it's an extra defensive ploy thing that could just basically allow you to tank units a bit better. It's good for baiting those ranged units who might be, you know, really annoying on a map. And I'm not just talking about arena, I'm talking about all around, of course. So, yes, Distant Defense is probably the one I would prioritize myself, and I am. So that's what I'm going to be going with when it comes down to seals. But we do have to talk about some of the other ones, right? I mean, why not? So, a lot of you are like, oh my god, life, you know, breath of life, ah! I almost said life and breath again, but breath of life, that means that if you stack this with, like, performing arts and things like that, you know, like the dancer weapons and this, and breath of life 3 from another unit, it's like 21 heal for an attack to an ally nearby. That's crazy. Yeah, somewhere the healers are weeping, but I don't really know if that's going to be something that's really necessary right now. I would probably, if it weren't for Distant Defense and maybe Deflects, there are a few other skills I would probably put it in. One, of course, would be the ploy abilities. I mean, having the ability to nerf someone's either, you know, stat or just cause a panic and, you know, create negatives out of nothing, basically, when someone buffs them, is always a good option, and attack ploy and panic ploy are good options to upgrade as well. Especially since it lowers the threshold for them to actually, you know, get hit by them or ups the effect. So, definitely something I would look out for. I do need to mention, though, real quick, Hardy Bearing, at least in the seal form right now for Hardy Bearing 2, it actually has a typo. It's mostly because they copy and pasted the description from 1 into 2, which is a bit of a lazy little fix, but I'll just point out the value is wrong. It's actually supposed to say 50% HP, not 100, so there you go. It's not like it's just upgrading for a useless skill, you know, or upgrading just to get nothing. There's actually an increment there, and it is better. But for those who don't know what Hardy Bearing is, it basically just gets rid of things like Vantage that would trigger, you know, someone else's attack before yours, things like that. It doesn't affect things like breaker skills, but it does affect priority attacks, like, you know, nothing that fusses with speed or attack or things like that, but just priority. So it's useful for some things, but I'm just pointing that out real quick since we can. Honestly, when it comes down to this, Distant Defense and probably ploys would be the ones that I would want to enhance first. A lot of you were like, did you see, Sages? They added the, you know, ability to increase the stat, you know, seals. That's great. That's great. I love it. Yes, that's cool. I like it a lot. That's fantastic. A lot of you are saying this essentially fixes IVs. Yeah, it fixes IVs if you have a lot of time and, you know, money to waste in this. I don't mean to sound rude, but this is going to be a huge investment just to fix any sort of problem a character may have, which is unfortunate, But, you know, if you want to spend it on these, I don't see a problem, but I would probably prioritize other seals over these any day. Just saying. Just as this is, okay? So, I'm not going to be really touching on the fortify things because, well, there's spurs to talk about. And now we're going to move over to creation, where there are new seals that we haven't seen before, and all that fun stuff. We'll talk about deflect in a second. But technically, we have 3 new spurs that are showing up here. And I do want to just say, before anyone spends any coins on any of these, I just want to mention that there is the possibility that when a Tempest Trial comes around or a new Seals quest comes around, any of these may actually end up on the list as something obtainable. So if you want to create these, by all means, go right ahead. But if they do show up as a quest reward later on, then don't be too worried about it, especially for things like Spur Res. Just saying. But the one thing we do need to touch on here is that Spur Seals are going to be pretty interesting, especially now that they can be upgraded, because, well, having an additional Spur is something that's really crazy because how stats work. You know how I said, I don't really want to touch on the Fortify Seals. That's because, well, Fortifies and things like that, they don't stack. You have the green number, that's a finite kind of thing, where you use it, you get that buff. That's all you get. It doesn't enhance if you have more Fortifies around. It's always going to be that value. So naturally, things like, you know, Hones and stuff are stuck at that value no matter what. But Spurs are the unseen numbers that go up when you're around a unit, or when you have a team positioned around that unit. So naturally, that's the invisible number. And that goes up, and it stacks. So things like, you know, goads, that's why goads are so powerful. That's why wards are so powerful. Because if you stack them on top of one another with a unit, that means that's going to go up significantly. So, yes, Spur Seals are going to be something that I would like to look out for, especially if you upgrade them, because you can potentially stack a Spur on top of another Spur on one character now, and this means that you can just pick and choose. You know, you could just pop a Spur on one of your units that didn't have it before, and now you have a unit that has Spur that allows them, you know, to, at least at later levels, I believe it's attack +4, things like that, which is kind of scary in a way, and something that's really cool as well. So Spurs are definitely up there as an option, but I'm just gonna say hold out for that real quick, and let's talk about deflect, okay? So deflect is something that I'm sure a lot of people are buzzing about. Deflects are cool little abilities that mostly seem to be swipes, broad swipes at brave weapons. Oh my god, I would like to say broad swipes, but it's pretty much just meant to nerf them in some ways. Because, well, each one of these are just consecutive hits you take reduced damage. That goes up to 80 if you get them up to, you know, level 3, which is going to be quite the investment, but it will pay off in the long run if you do go up against the more meta units in the game. You know, those archers that run Brave Bow, those certain blue tome units who happen to have a Brave Tome. Those units will find that they are doing significantly less damage to those units who have these seals, because, of course, brave weapons attack twice, and they attack in consecutive order, so yes, that's definitely a pretty interesting thing. But, as I said before, these require you to, of course, go into the specifics. This isn't like Irvan, where, you know, it's every attack from certain things, or you know what? I need to actually look at that. I'm pretty sure Irvan is all attacks, or at least all damage. I could be wrong, though. Let me just check real quick. Yep, okay, good. Yes, like I thought. I just didn't want to get that wrong. But mostly, when you get down to the brass tacks, this just has a lot of more stipulations, so you're going to have to prepare ahead of time. Especially, you know, when you go into things like Arena, of course. But it is very useful if you do manage to upgrade them. At least for Arena, I guess. And it's definitely meant to get rid of the more troublesome units that use brave weapons, a lot of the higher level archers, a lot of the higher level mage units that are on horses that are blue tomes, you know, things like that. It's going to be something neat, but I don't think they are going to be something you need right away. Just on my opinion alone. If you decide to build them, cool, that's great. But yeah, from there and I do need to remind you that for those who are wondering, it is consecutive attacks, meaning you have to be hit in a row. You know, like a brave weapon hits twice right at the start, and then you hit. It can't be you get hit, then you hit back, and then you get hit again. It needs to be consecutive. If you break the chain, you don't get the reduction. So yes, this might be more valuable for the slower units out there as well, in case you decide to take them up. So it does have some usefulness outside of that, but for higher gameplay with, you know, some better units, I still feel distant defense is a lot better, just in general. When it comes to seals, I'm gonna just go through them real quick again. Distant defense is probably the higher priority for me. Ploy's next, and then I would probably move on to spurs as well. So that's what I'm going with, and then maybe deflects when I get the chance. But there's going to be a lot of work there to be had, and you know, who knows what's going to happen. It's going to be a crazy next month or so as we see people get all of these seals and create some crazy stuff, and I hope you guys are excited. But I figured I would give you my ideas of how seals, you know, what seals I would be going for and what seals you might want to go for. So hopefully this helps at least in some fashion, and just as a reminder that this is actually in October of 2017, so if anyone complains that this is old and outdated information because, you know, there's new seals now, you can bite me. Just saying. The battery's low, it's time to end the video.